Welcome to part 2. Let's continue our series on sexual abuse. Part 1, if you didn't have a chance to listen, covered statistics on sexual abuse, covered preferential offenders, it covered the grooming process, it covered child on child sexual abuse, which is less reported, by the way. And so now we're going to continue on, and I'm going to teach you how to reduce risk. Okay? So let's start out with preferential offenders. Gift giving, making the child feel special, kid magnet activities, peer like communications, repeated time alone with child, touchy with child, pushing physical boundaries, breaking the rules, justifying rule breaking, playful but inappropriate touch. If you see any of these, just know that there's a problem here. These are all red flags. Remove all access from this adult to your child. Okay? Because it can show that there is already high risk of something that has happened already or could possibly be in the works of beginning. Okay? So if you see an adult acting this way, red flag. Absolutely red flag. Don't think it twice. Don't doubt yourself. Red flag. In order to reduce risk, we want to increase supervision and communication. Like I said, no secrets. And when you are in a place where there's multiple children, one, make sure to always have eyes on your child. And two, make sure that you're watching also with other parents or other caregivers, other staff, or whatever the case is. Keep your eyes peeled. If someone says, hey, I'm going to take this child by myself over here, you're not going nowhere with no child. We can go together, or I can call for someone to go with you. But do not let any child out of your sight. Okay? Now, this becomes difficult when your abuser is your father or your mother or your sister or your brother, and you actually live with them at home. And since the high majority of abusers are males, mothers, listen to me. If you suspect that your spouse, your husband, is abusing your children, if your child comes up to you and says, Mommy, Daddy did this, do not brush it off. Do not justify it in your mind. Do not rationalize it. Oh no, he couldn't have. He's not like that. He loves our kids. He loves us. Why would he do that? No, she's probably confused. He's probably confused. He probably doesn't understand truly what's happening. No. A child will be honest. They will tell you the truth. You do not protect a man over your child. You do not protect a man over your child. It's important that you choose your child. Again, you are their protector. They need to be able to go to someone if their father is abusing them. That's you, mom or stepmom. Because far too often, I have seen too many wives remain with pedophiles married to them. I do not understand, if someone can help me get it, why you would want to remain with someone who is a pedophile. To even conceive justifying that in any way is wrong. It's wrong. There is no excuse. And I haven't even touched on the moms that actually become jealous of their daughters who are being sexually abused. And they see their daughters as competition. Absolutely not. Your child is being abused by their father, and you think they're competition? You don't see it as heinous? You don't say, this is disgusting. I cannot do this. I cannot stay with this person. I have to protect my child. My child comes first. Their safety comes first to me. If that's not clicking in your mind, something is wrong. Something is wrong. There is no excuse to protect a pedophile instead of protecting your children. I do not care what anybody says to you. I don't even care what the church says to you, because for far too long, church leaders, unhealthy ones, have told women to stay in situations like that. That is wrong, and it's against the word of God. Unacceptable. Unacceptable. Protect your children. Protect your children. I want to show you, I want to tell you a different part of my testimony now. I was sexually abused at 3 different parts of my life. The first, around the age of 4, by a family member who I didn't admit to that till I was much older. The second one, when I was about 7 or 8, that was one of my uncle's family friends, which happens a lot, by the way. Family friends, absolutely, I've seen it time and time again, sexually abused children in the family. Okay? And then the last one was when I was 13 years old, and I want to tell you what happened with that. At the age of 13, I began to be sexually abused by a family member. I hit really bad depression, like really bad depression. I wasn't doing well. I went from an honor student to failing all of my classes, red flag. Feeling depressed, red flag. Not wanting to do anything, talk to anybody, nothing like that. So one day the school pulls me in and they're like, Valerie, we noticed you've been behaving different. You're failing all of your grades, all of your classes. What's going on? I did not know at the time. I did not know at the time that the school is a mandated reporter. Any teacher is a mandated reporter. So I told them I was being abused by a family member, and they reported it, as they should, and I'm glad that they did. Although I was terrified, I will never forget that feeling when they told me that they were going to report it. I literally felt like I was going to die and just pass out. Like I couldn't take it. The anxiety, the fear that I felt is, I can still literally feel it today. That's how intense it was. And I'll never forget, they called my mom as well. They notified her. My mother chose to believe me, which I'm immensely grateful for, because it was one of her brothers. But what happened after was also devastating to me. You see, my whole family came against me. They started to call, leave voicemails of threats, death threats, that they were going to kill me, that I was going to die, to be careful when my mom was driving her car, that the brakes wouldn't work. Oh man, I went through it. You see, my family didn't believe me. Only my mother did. And if any of my family members are watching this today, I just want to tell you, I wasn't lying. I wasn't making that up. But this is what happens in family oftentimes. Family members will come against victims. And I literally thought I was gonna die. I thought that they were going to kill me. Now my case got taken to court because the state of Florida picked it up. Because the state of Florida, thankfully, is a no-nonsense state when it comes to any kind of sexual abuse. They will absolutely prosecute you, which I'm glad for. And there is no statute of limitation here in Florida, thankfully. But the whole court proceeding was a mess. I was terrified. His attorneys scared the heck out of me, threatened me that if I was lying, that this and this and this and that, they did things illegally they weren't allowed to do. And I had to suffer through that whole process. Why did I choose to share that now? Because his wife remained with him, even though she knew what he did to me. And the first family member who abused me when I was 4, his wife remained with him, even though she knew what he did to me, her daughter, and other children. These are people who went to church 5 days a week, leaders at their church, musicians at the church. Twisted. That's not Christianity, by the way. That's not Christ-like, and that is against the Bible. But this is who they were. And their wives remained with them. So again, I'm just going to tell you, they do not change. They just find new victims to offend. And if that's the life you want to live, that's on you. But please don't subject your child to it, especially if they've been a victim to it. It's devastating to think that a man would bring more value than a child, especially one that sexually abuses children. What do you do when a child reports to you that they're being sexually abused? 1, you listen and respond calmly. If you get angry and you start yelling and hollering and, oh my God, you're going to shut the child down. You're going to scare them. I know if you're hearing this, it's triggering, it's devastating, it's angering, and you're feeling all kinds of emotions. I get it. But you must listen and respond calmly so that they feel safe enough to continue to open up to you. Number 2, be sensitive to vague and partial disclosure. They are gauging how you're going to respond. And if you are responding in a specific kind of way, they're not going to share anything else with you. Ask open-ended questions. Things like, what happened next? Tell me a little bit more about that. Those kind of statements and questions are helpful. Number 3, don't ask shaming questions. And really what I want to say is don't ask stupid questions. What were you wearing? Who cares? There is absolutely no reason for someone to be sexually abused with what they're wearing. Babies all the way up to adolescents get abused and they all wear different clothing. So who cares? Someone who is going to abuse regardless of what someone is wearing because they've already sexualized the child in their mind. Number 2, why didn't you tell us sooner? Because it's scary. It is scary to say something like this and feel like you're not going to be believed. So don't ask that question. Just say, thank you for telling me. I really appreciate you being open and honest with me. I love you and I'm here for you and I'm going to keep you safe. And I believe you. I believe you. That's what your response should be. Number 4, report to your supervisor or local authorities, both. Because I've seen people report to leadership and leadership does nothing. Because there is leadership who sweeps things under the rug. Oh, this person, they're just such a good person. I don't want to ruin their lives. But they're ruining the lives of children. So not only are you going to report to whoever you report to, if it's at a job, at a church, at a school, whatever the case is, then you report to the authorities. No ifs, ands, or buts, especially if the child told you. You make a report. Number 5, no, if a child says, hey, you can't tell anybody this, you have to keep a secret. This is what your response should be. I can't keep you being harmed a secret. I hope you will trust me and know that I will believe you. Okay? Children are terrified. I was terrified. Like I told you, I can still feel. I can go back to that day and still feel the amount of fear and anxiety I was feeling. Children are scared. They're vulnerable, especially if they've been threatened. Especially if they've been threatened. So handle it with care, please. Let's talk about some short term impacts of child sexual abuse. Number one, poor self hygiene. So you see a lot of poor self care. These may be kids who don't want to take care of themselves, don't want to dress nice, they don't want to take a shower, they don't want to brush their teeth. I dealt with this for a huge period of my life. What I came to realize and I didn't understand was I was trying to make myself as unappealing as I could for any other sexual predator. I didn't understand it at the time. I came to find that out later. If I make myself as unappealing as I possibly can, no one will be attracted to me that shouldn't be attracted to me. What a horrible plight for a child to have to wait. That if I make myself unattractive and look a specific way, that someone won't be attracted to me, an adult won't be attracted to me. Number two, and a short sign that is common that a lot of you have heard, is bedwetting. If your child is already trained and all of a sudden they start bedwetting, red flag. One of the most common symptoms of child sexual abuse is bedwetting. Sudden weight change. Children can start eating more, but children can also start eating less, right? They don't feel hungry. They don't have an appetite. They feel like, ugh. And then on the flip side, they can start eating to start feeling like they want to cope. They don't understand it that way because remember, their perception of what's going on, they don't fully understand. It's their brain doing the work, trying to do everything it can to cope. Fears and phobias, including night terrors and nightmares, a common one. And this doesn't only happen to children. This also happens to victims of sexual assault. Nightmares are very common. It is a very common symptom of PTSD. Okay, so lots of night terrors, nightmares could indicate that there's an issue. Self mutilation, especially for adolescents, a lot of cutting, a lot of self harming, right? For younger children, you can see this in dolls. So girls who play with Barbie dolls or baby dolls, you can see them all marked up. You can see them look mutilated. You can see an arm or a leg popped off, eyes being colored black. You get to see different things that can represent child sexual abuse. Again, because for the younger ones, especially, they don't know how to process what's going on. But they are sharing how they feel. Remember, behavior is communication in children. Behavior is communication in children. Disinterest in person or activity they previously enjoyed, like we talked about. Difficulty walking or sitting. This is for the children who are sexually abused in such a way that their physical body is harmed. So if you have a child who has a difficulty just walking or sitting down, they're like, I, huge red flag. Please know that's not normal. Okay? And talk to your children. Itching in genital areas or in your anal area or in their anal areas. If it's consistent, and you know that they're taking a bath, they're doing everything that they can, this can be a sign of child sexual abuse. Okay, we want to make sure we get them checked, right, by a doctor, physician, but also talk to your children to make sure that you're asking questions. Has anyone touched you here? Has anyone done anything? Very simple questions, especially for younger children. Okay. A startled response to touch and affection. If you go to touch your child and they're jumpy, that's not a normal response. They're they're telling you, "Hey, something has happened and anytime you touch me, I'm scared." So, it's something to be aware of. Sexual play with toys or themselves. I don't care what anybody says. Too young of sexual touch or sexual play is not normal. Because a lot of people dress it up as they're just exploring their bodies. Be very careful. Be very, very careful. Are children curious? Sure. But be very, very, very careful. Okay? Too much of that or seeing sexual play of any kind, especially with toys, huge red flag. That's something that I didn't know that I was doing. My mom told me when I was older. When I was a child, when I was 4 or 5, I was showing signs of child sexual abuse, engaging in sexual play with the toys that I did have. I didn't know. I was just repeating what was happening to me. Explicit drawings. Okay, if you're seeing explicit storytelling or drawings, could be a red flag as well. And we want to make sure that you're asking questions again. Why have you drawn this? Tell me a little bit more about this. What does this mean? You have to be very wise in how you ask questions. Okay, not in a judgmental way, in a curious way. It'll make all of the difference. Now let's talk about long-term impacts. Depression. I was a victim of that. Significant correlation between victims and depression. I struggled with depression for the majority of my life. Suicidal thoughts and acts. Same thing. Eating disorders, an effort to regain a sense of control over their own bodies. This also happened to me as well. I overate. And it became a coping strategy. Substance abuse. Kids who start smoking and drinking at a young age. Red flag. If you have a 9, 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 12-year-old smoking, drinking, and something is up. Something is up. A drop in academic performance. And I shared with you what happened to me. Started failing all of my classes. This is a big one that most people don't know and understand. Promiscuity and/or seductive behaviors, using their body to get attention. I struggled with this personally as well, especially after that incident when I was 13. Because at that point, I had been taught and groomed that the only way to receive love or affection was through my body. So promiscuity, the way that we have seen it is, oh my gosh, they're so promiscuous. Oh my gosh, look at them. They're doing this, they're doing that, they're doing this. It's often a sign of child sexual abuse. Victims are often trying to reclaim some sense of control over their bodies because it's been taken from them. Can you imagine what it is that the first time you experience any kind of sexual touch, it's being done by someone that shouldn't be doing it at an age you shouldn't be receiving it? It wakes up everything in your body. At the age of 4, I was already being sexually abused. My mind was already open to sex. By the time I was 7, I was introduced to pornography. Those are the developmental years of children. So yes, promiscuity is often a sign of child sexual abuse. And I hope that shifts people's perspective of promiscuity. And you go from, oh my God, they're so promiscuous, to, oh my gosh, I wonder what happened to them. What led them to this? A loss of innocence. Like I said, innocence is taken from you the moment someone violates your body in a way that they're not supposed to at an age that shouldn't be happening. So you lose innocence. Unfortunately, you lose the ability to be a child. I did not have an ability to be a child. All I could do was survive. And that was how my brain was wired for so long. On the flip side, excessive modesty, especially in girls. So some girls will start to fully cover up. And you'll see a huge turnaround in the way that they dress their attire. That can be an indication of sexual abuse. Listen to this staggering statistic. Prostitution. A study indicated 98% of both male and female prostitutes were sexually abused as children. 98%. Again, we go back to the promiscuity. A staggering number. A lot of what you see is actually child sexual abuse, not the way that you have been taught to see it, but the truth of what it is, sexual abuse. Let's talk about reporting, and I'm almost done. Mandatory reporters report. Not reporting is a crime. All therapists, counselors of any kind are mandated reporters, first responders, teachers, all church member leaders should be mandatory reporters. So you see something, you hear something, you say something. It's not up to you to play FBI to figure out, is this true? Is this not true? Oh my gosh, I don't know. Let's wait for the facts. No, report it. It's not your job to investigate. It is your job to report. And even if you're not considered a mandatory reporter, report anyways. Because again, do you want to keep children safe? It's better to be safe than sorry. So it's important to know you have an obligation to report. There is something here that says you can create a good faith report, which means that you didn't do it out of malicious intent or with false information, which means you are protected from lawsuits or any kind of prosecutions, just in case that helps you feel better. Me, I don't care about none of that. I'm going to report anyways, right? Because if a child tells me, hey, I'm being sexually abused, I'm being touched, this person is doing this to me, I'm not even waiting. Like, it's an immediate, I'm reporting this, okay? You report all suspicions, not confirmations. That's it. Okay? Again, don't investigate. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. Not this person. Yes, that person. Yep, it absolutely can be that person. Okay? So keep that in account. One of the things that's really important, don't ever ask the perpetrator separately before reporting or even in front of the child. There is no reason you should be doing this. In fact, you endanger a child when you do this. Your goal is, your rule of thumb is you hear something, you report it. You do not question the perpetrator. Don't even let them know, hey, I've reported this. No. They don't need to know anything. Let the police handle it. And if you do confront a child in front of the perpetrator, guess what? That child would no longer trust you. Because now they're terrified that you've put them in such a compromising position of danger. Don't do it. Report straight to the authorities. Let them figure it out. So what does the Bible say about this? A lot, actually. The Bible shares quite a few stories about sexual abuse and assault, because the Bible does cover everything that we go through in life. One of the most saddest stories in the Bible is the story of Tamar, David's daughter, who was raped by her half-brother. You can read it in 2 Samuel chapter 13. Be prepared. It's a heavy story. It's a heavy story. Okay? Now, he went on to get killed by the other brother a few years later after he raped their sister. If you think that there's some kind of twisted way where God is okay with this, nope. That this is love, nope. That this is God's love, nope. That God is testing you? Nope. That this is a trial to endure? Nope. That God wants you to be faithful in the marriage to someone who sexually abused your children or other children? Nope. No. Let's not twist scripture. Let's not manipulate the text. Sexual abuse and sexual assault is wrong before the eyes of the Lord. So much so that if you go to Deuteronomy 22, rape is considered to be equivalent to murder. Rape is considered to be equivalent to murder. God condemns this. This is sexual immorality. And the Bible speaks significantly and a lot on sexual immorality. So God is not for sexual abuse. God does not excuse it. God does not like it. God is not pleased with it or anything else that any pedophile or perpetrator will tell you to justify their behavior. No. The right course of action is that they be criminally prosecuted for their behavior. The end. The end. That's it. That's your obligation. Sexual abuse is a sin against God. It is sexually immoral. It's not okay. I was reading in an article online something that I really, really just resonated with, and I wanted to share with you. Number one, sexual abuse is a bodily sin. Sexual abuse and assault is a violation of bodily boundaries and distorts one's senses of body image. Number two, it is a sin against relationship, violating the command to love one another as oneself. Three, it is a sin betraying trust and destroying relationships between victims and those who should have cared for them, but instead harmed them. It creates distrust moving forward for other relationships. And four, it is a sin not only against the victims, but the community that surrounds the victim. When you sexually abuse, I'm sorry, I don't want to say that. When a child is sexually abused, not only is that child affected now, oftentimes the people around them are affected if it comes out. Why? Because those who truly love the child are hurting. They're hurting. It's devastating. It's traumatic. So sexual abuse is not just affecting one person. If it affects the main person, the victim, 100%, and then it affects those who love that child. It is a sin. I want to read to you a statistic really quick about the church that you're going to find out to be just really sad, if I'm being honest with you. Research indicates 56.24% of clergy child sexual abuse cases involve pastors or associate pastors, with 73.8% of offenses occurring during church activities. With this in mind, and in order to be above reproach, as the scriptures called elders to be, pastors and members should desire to have policies in place to ensure that children are safe and have methods to report any issues without fear. Okay? I'm just touching on the church aspect because we're talking about the Bible and the sin. For too long, we have also swept under the rug and covered pastors and leaders who have sexually abused not only their children, but children in the church. I applaud the churches who, as soon as they find out, They go straight to the police, they dismiss that person, and they fully cooperate with the law. For those who haven't, there's no reason that you shouldn't have. Your goal as pastors, as leaders, is to protect every single individual the Lord has placed in your hands. And you will be accountable. You will be accountable to the Lord for not stepping up to protect children. But you can start today. And if you've ever heard of it in the past, it's not too late to report. And moving forward, anybody in the church who has heard of this, please know it is your obligation to speak up. I don't care if it's a family member, a friend, one of your favorite leaders. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. Speak up, report it. That's it. Let's talk about the Bible verse for this week that I want you to meditate on and pray on. And just know, especially if you've been a victim or if your child has been a victim of sexual abuse. And we're going to go to Psalms 34:18. Let's pull it up. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. I want you to know that if you have been a victim of child sexual abuse, the Lord sees all things, He knows all things, and He is with you. He is close to you. Even if you feel like your heart is broken in a million pieces, He's with you. He wants to heal your heart. And the Lord does bring justice. How? I'll use my dad as an example. My dad has been offending, by the time he was arrested, for over 20 years. He probably thought, I'll get away with it scot-free. He didn't. He didn't. So justice can still be served. The Lord is the Lord of justice. But He's also close to you, especially when you're struggling. And for parents who have supported their children, when they have spoken up, and the pain that you have endured, the Lord is also close to you as well, with you. It's important that you know that. And always keep that in mind when you feel alone. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted, and He saves those who are crushed in spirit. So here are some reflection questions. The first questions are going to be for victims of child sexual abuse. After hearing this, are you able to say, hey, I have been sexually abused as a child? And I say that, and that may sound weird, right? But I say that because too often as a therapist, I see many people who have hidden that, dug that to the deepest parts of them where they completely avoid it, don't think about it, ignore it. And so it's hard for them to even think about it, right? But awareness is the first step of healing. So you can't avoid it. I know it hurts. I know what that pain is. But it's important that you say and recognize, I have been sexually abused as a child. And number 2, have you processed this? If you have not processed this, I want you to be very, very careful about how you do. Why? Because as a therapist who works in and specializes in trauma, you can re-traumatize yourself if you start talking about this freely. Why? Because if it's been dug so deep and has not been processed, guess what comes flooding up? All of the emotions, the triggers, behaviors, and a whole bunch of things. Please know that the best recourse for dealing with trauma is, 1, of course, going to the Lord. For everything, that is always your first stop. And 2, going to therapy, to someone who is trained in trauma. Okay? Someone who is trained in trauma is not going to tell you, hey, tell me all the details of your abuse on the first day. No. As a matter of fact, I tell my clients, I'm not ready to hear your story on abuse, not for quite some time. And they're actually shocked about that. Why? Because we have to handle trauma carefully. Okay? Now, if you choose to share your truth, by all means, go for it. You deserve it. You deserve to share your truth and your story. I just want to make sure you're doing it in a careful way, where you're being supported and you're being taught how to manage what can come up from it. Here's a question for parents and family members. Number one, have you supported your family members who have come forward? That's a big question. Because a lot of you watching probably would say, yeah. And there may be some of you who says, no, I didn't. And that's a question that's heavy within itself. And the second one is, if your child has been a victim, have you processed it as well? Remember, being a parent means that you are also going through the trauma of learning that your child has been sexually abused. It's important that you also process it. You can't just hold it in here. It will absolutely affect you. Okay? And if you're brave enough to share your story, which if you don't want to, that's okay, you're still brave. I just want you to know that it's important that you do it in a careful way. Okay? Thank you for joining me. I know this is a heavy one, but I hope this has opened your eyes to how common child sexual abuse is. I hope this helps you to enforce measures that will keep the children around you safe from perpetrators, to speak up when you need to. There are no bystanders in the kingdom, not in the kingdom of God. You have to speak truth. And for those who are victims or families of victims, I hope that you heal. Healing is possible. I am a testament of that. The Lord did a great work in me, and so did therapy. So you can heal. So you can heal. Have hope today. There's always hope in Jesus. I love you guys. Until next time.